Yom Tov. That means good day. This is Stephen Bruck. You're watching Messianic Moment Ministries, and I thank you for being here. Today is Friday the 13th, 2019. And being Friday, we're going to be talking about the Parsha reading for this Shabbat, which is called Vayishlach. We read that Jacob is on his way back to the land of his father, and he hears that Esau, his brother, is coming to meet him with 400 men. Well, Jacob assumes that Esau is still peeved about that firstborn rights thing, so he creates 3 groups of animals, each group separated from the other, to be a gift to Esau in the hope that it will appease his anger. Jacob and his group come to the Jabbok River, which is by Shechem, just a little south of Shechem in the Jordan Rift Valley, and everyone crosses over while Jacob remains as the last one to cross, making sure everyone is safely on the other side. As night comes, he wrestles with the man until the morning, when the man, who we learn is an angel, strikes Jacob in the hip trying to get away, which partially disables Jacob. Jacob holds on, though, and the man asks to be released, but Jacob won't release him until he blesses Jacob. The angel gives him a new name, Israel, which means one who wrestled with God. Now, with Esau coming, Jacob sends his gifts one at a time and splits his camp into 2 big groups. He leads off with the handmaidens of his wives and their children, then Leah with her children, and in the rear with him Rachel and Joseph. Esau comes and they reconcile. Eventually Esau going back to his land, Edom, and Jacob staying behind and settling in Shechem on a plot of land he buys from Hamor, the king of Shechem. After Jacob settled, later on, his daughter by Leah, Dinah, is out on her own, and the son of Hamor, whose name is Shechem, sees her and rapes her. But afterward he falls in love with her, and he asks his father to get her to be his wife. Well, Jacob and all the family, especially Levi and Shimon, who are her brothers by Leah, are disgusted by this vile act. But they agree to allow Dinah to become Shechem's wife under one condition. All the men in the city must be circumcised. Well, Hamor convinces the men to undergo this painful and debilitating operation. See, back then they didn't have packages of frozen peas they could use as a cold compress. And he convinces them because he says that when they do it, all the possessions of Jacob will also be theirs. So the men undergo the operation, and on the 3rd day, which is the most painful, when they can't even really walk, Levi and Shimon attack the village and slaughter all the men, taking all their goods and families as booty. Well, Jacob is afraid that surrounding tribes will now attack him for this evil act, and God tells him to go to Bethel. On the way, Benjamin is born to Rachel, who dies in childbirth and is buried outside Bethlehem. The Parsha ends with the death of Isaac, and they give us the lineage of Esau. So far in this book of the Torah, we know that Abraham purchased land in Hebron, and that Jacob, we learn now, purchased land in Shechem, where eventually Joseph will be buried, and his tomb is still there today. Now, did you know that these 2 places, which are legally owned by the descendants of the patriarchs, in other words, the Jewish people, are essentially forbidden to Jews? When I was in Israel in 2016, our guide told us that Jews going to the cave of the patriarchs were taking a dangerous trip because it's surrounded by Arab towns, and they have attacked Jews trying to visit the cave. As for Shechem, it's still under Arab control, and let me show you. This is the warning sign that is hanging on the fence that is the boundary fence around Shechem. Take a look and read. The bottom part you can see here is the English. If Jews want to visit the burial place of Joseph, they may be killed, and there will be no legal action taken against the killers. Now, these aren't the only places where Jews or Israelis are being kept from the land they legally own. The West Bank, which is really the section of Israel in the middle called Shamron, it's also known as Samaria, has historically been possessed by the Jewish people. Yet the Jews that are settled there now and have built homes and cities are under attack by the Palestinian people, claiming that the land is their land and the Israelis are invaders. Hey, for the record, there are no such people as the Palestinian people. That's a term that Yasser Arafat created as propaganda. Before Israel was created in 1948, the North Syrian shepherds would often cross down the boundary into Israel with their flocks and, after denuding the territory, then return to their own country. That is the full extent of their claim to be inhabitants. The only real Palestinian people, if we want to get technical, were the Jewish people living there after the Romans destroyed the temple in Jerusalem in 73 AD and renamed Judea to Philistia, which Palestine, and they named it after the Philistines, the ancient enemy of the Jews. There was never any Arab interest in any part of the land that the Israelis have settled in until after they were there and making the land economically feasible. There has never been a permanent Arab settlement in that part of the world. It wasn't until after Israel was declared to be a separate state that the surrounding Arab nations made claims of ownership. Now, God promised that land to the descendants of Abraham, and he confirmed that promise to Isaac and Jacob. Now, when God says something once, you can be pretty sure it will be. When he says it twice, there can be no doubt at all that it will happen that way. But if God says something 3 times, then you can bet your life on it. In fact, God repeats the promise to give the land to the descendants of Abraham to Moses as well, and he gives Joshua the boundary lines of each tribe and orders him to take the land from those who are already there. Now, that's Joshua chapters 15 through 20. Excuse me. Now, the only way to be certain, the only way to be certain of the ownership of all the land which God promised to give to the children of Israel is to start with the belief that God exists, and also that he created everything in the universe, and finally that everything on, in, around, under, and above the earth belongs to God. Now, when we accept that as truth, then ownership of the land cannot be contested. God gave that land to the descendants of Abraham through Isaac. Now, this is an important point. God did not promise this land to the descendants of Ishmael, but to the descendants of Abraham through Isaac and Jacob. God told Moses that all the land from the Mediterranean Sea to the Euphrates River belongs to the children of Israel. That's in Exodus 23:31. Now, the British promised Israel almost all the land that God said we should have in their Balfour Declaration of 1917. But by the time Israel actually got the land, the size was only a fraction of what had been promised to them. Yet, God has strengthened his people, and they have expanded, taking back much of their ancient boundaries. One day, in Hebrew you say Yom Echad, one day God will make sure that his promise is completely fulfilled. And when that day comes, only those who have accepted Yeshua as their Messiah and have stood by Israel will be able to see God's promise come to fruition. Well, thank you, as always, for being here. And please, don't hesitate to subscribe. You can click the icons in the corners on YouTube, and also go back to the website and click the little subscribe button in the margin. And don't hesitate to make comments if you feel up to it. I always welcome comments. I wish you all Shabbat Shalom. And until next time, Lehitrot and Baruch Hashem.